Yeah, we're recording. I'll just check if it's live and then.
You've gone live on the publisher's page as well?
Yes. So we have Pan Macmillan's page and our pages. Yeah, we're live. We should just wait for a couple of seconds for people to start joining in, and then I'll probably introduce all of you.
Sure.
Okay. Let's begin if you all are ready. Great. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Sapna Rise. I'm Natasha Doshi, and we have some very dynamic personalities with us today. We have our very own director, Nijesh Shah, and we have two budding authors with us. We have Gaurav and Durjai, and we're here to talk about their new book, The Pilani Pioneers. I hand over the platform to Nijesh Shah, our director, as I pointed out. He will take this forward. Over to you, Nijesh.
Yeah, I got logged. Yeah. Thank you, Natasha. I'm super excited to have both these young guys, Gaurav and Durjai. Not like I'm too old, but it's good to have someone of almost a similar age, if not more. But wonderful to have you guys. And personally, I was so excited to learn about the book that you guys wrote. And it reminds me of the initial days, the books that I read. I was just mentioning to you off screen that I read the book called Men of Steel, which inspired me right at the start of my journey. And this book is no less in terms of inspiration, in terms of motivation, in terms of learning. And there's so many startups now, so many people who've taken the plunge of entrepreneurship, so many people trying to climb the corporate ladder, and putting all these stories. It helps different segments and different age groups of the society. So, firstly, kudos to the two of you for bringing out such a dynamic, such an inspiring book. And I'm not going to start off with general questions in terms of why you wrote and how you wrote and XYZ, because the stories in these books is something which we'll have to cover in the short time that we have, because we'll try to maximize the readers. The people who are watching this today, their interest on this book, and we'll see what takeaways they can get from the two of you.
Sounds good. Thank you for having us, Nijesh.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Really excited to do this. Yeah, thank you so much.
well, I'm excited too, and without much ado, I'll quickly dive into certain dynamics of the book that I read. And there are 25 stories that you've covered. I've got certain prints in front of me, so don't mind if my eyelids go a little down, because I'll have to read through these prints to get you guys started. And we've seen 25 stories of people which almost all of us are aware of. They are part of news. They're part of social media. They're part of discussions back in the boardrooms, in classroom studies, in case studies. So it's very exciting to know more about them, their journey. And you guys have interviewed them, so you guys can also talk about their personal experiences that you have experienced while talking to them. So out of the 25 stories, there are certain stories that really touched me from a learning point of view. So I'll pick out certain of those aspects, and then I'll let you guys talk about them. The first story is Mahesh Babu, the former MD and CEO of Mahindra Electric. And today we talk about e-vehicles, electrics as the next big thing in the chart of Indian trajectory. And Mahindra was the initial mover, if I can say so, in the electric vehicle space. So can you tell us the story about Mahesh Babu, and while meeting him, what you learned about his vision of electric two-wheelers and four-wheelers?
So to be honest, a very fun story, and I think you're hitting it off at a very interesting note. When we interviewed him, we actually interviewed him in his Mahindra XUV 500, right? I mean, it wasn't in a cafe, it wasn't in his office. Incidentally, he was, I'm forgetting the name of the park. I think Shanti Park, there is in Bangalore itself. There is a particular park by the name Shanti Park, I think. And they had launched Mahindra Trio, which is an electric three-wheeler, and he was addressing a gathering of autowalas in that park. And from there, he had to go to pick his daughter. She was preparing for JE or NEET. She was in her 12th grade. So we actually got 40 minutes from point A to point B from that Shanti Park ride to the place where where his daughter had her coaching. So, and that was the only time when we felt, thank God, Bangalore has like crazy traffic so that we get more time for the interview, right? I mean, so we actually had it from in the car ride from point A to point B. A few things about Mr. Mahesh Babu, and for sure it's apparent through the chapters. But one thing is, as a leader, he feels, and specifically like electric vehicles, right? All of us have heard EVs are going to be true. Now we are seeing so many two-wheeler, EVs coming into. I mean, EV brands being born from India. Mahindra Reva was the first one, which was there, and then Mahindra acquired it, Mr. Chetan Maini, and then today we have Ather as a two-wheeler brand, Ola launching its two-wheeler brand, MG Hector, couple of these, in the four-wheeler segment also launching it. So the way Mr. Babu looks at the entire market, right? It's not at all competitive. He feels first we have to collaborate to achieve a certain threshold of electric vehicles in India, and then it will get to a level of competitive, right? So it's collaborative first, then competitive. And for him, he's been a long time veteran of the Mahindra Group. He's been with the group. It's only like a few months back that he moved on for another interesting journey, which I'm sure all of you have been following over the news. But he's been with the Mahindra Group for such a long time, so he also shared learning of the Mahindra Group with Mr. Pawan Goenka, with Mr. Anand Mahindra. So yeah, all in all, like interesting person. Again, like he's very busy, and the only time we got was during his commute. But yeah,
Oh, I think there's an outage from Gaurav's side.
Probably Durjai, why don't you continue?
Definitely. So, adding to what Gaurav said, and I also understand why, Nijesh, you picked Mahesh sir's chapter at the first to be discussed, because I mean, it appeals to me as well. When I heard his thoughts, when I heard his philosophies as a leader, I was so impressed. I mean, this wasn't like a bumper sticker material. He actually meant it. The thoughts were so unique, so original. I think you would have resonated there, where Mr. Babu says that the job of a leader is to enable others to be better. And that is the success metric of a leader. I mean, very simple words, but it has so much meaning attached to it. It speaks volumes about his career and his philosophy about business and life.
Wonderful. I think, like you rightly said, he's someone who's changed the demographics of the electric vehicles. And of course, with Mahindra leading from the front with Reva, I think back about 10 years back, did Reva come out with electric vehicle? And that's
Yeah.
how initial they started off. So very inspiring that you got a chance to ride home, or rather, I would say, ride with him in his vehicle in that 40 minutes, and pen down all that he had to say. So wonderful. And to all those who are listening, the Pilani Pioneers is a story of 25 great people who have been part of the industry, the economy of India. And the best part is that all of them have graduated from BITS Pilani, and that's why the two authors, Gaurav and Durjai, again from BITS Pilani, have written about them. And I'm sure that moving ahead from Mahindra Electric, we'll get to learn and hear some more inspiring stories. So, without further delay, why don't you talk us through Sunil Dugal's journey in Dabur India? Joining as a GM of sales and marketing and becoming the firm's longest serving CEO. And Dabur today is a household name. It's the
Right.
leading FMCG company in India. And I'm sure that you guys would have learned a lot in interviewing him and writing about him. So why don't you shoot out his journey and Dabar's journey from the time he joined as an employee to becoming the
Mhm.
longest serving CEO and today's position of Dabar.
For sure. I'd actually like Gaurav to speak more about it, but I have an interesting anecdote from the book that he shared. And yes, we all know that Mr. Duggal has been the longest serving CEO of Dabur. He served for 17 years. And throughout his journey, although he saw huge amounts of success in his journey, he was bold enough to talk about his failures at first, which I felt was really inspiring. And to a certain extent, it showed how secure he was as a person, as a business leader. Uh, I'm sure if you have the chapter in front of you, you'd see, I think it's in the first section itself, where he mentions that he led an acquisition. If I'm not wrong, it was in Turkey. And
That's right.
back then, I think acquisitions, especially international acquisitions, India to a foreign country were not the norm, not the convention. And he boldly mentions that, and he admits that I think that was not the best decision because we didn't take into account a lot of parameters. Let's say, hey, the company seemed profitable, the venture would seem profitable, but what if the currency tanked? Nobody thought about that, and it did do that. And people would generally hide the failures, right? It just goes to show how human he is, how bold he is, and how secure with his success he is. Hi, Gaurav. I was just talking to Nijesh and telling him that anecdote about Mr. Duggal about his acquisition in Turkey. And
Yeah.
Mr. So Nijesh would like to know more about Mr. Duggal's journey from start to end of Dabur's CEO, from how he started
Because
the
he
low
was the
amounts.
longest serving CEO, right, Gaurav? And that's what we were discussing. He joined in as GM of marketing and then went on to become the CEO and then served, being a CEO for the longest time. Dabur had a CEO. So I think it'll be very interesting to learn about the biggest or one of the biggest FMCG brands in India.
Yeah. No, absolutely right. And so with Mr. Dugal, again, couple of things. He's very intellectually honest and very radical, you know, like in his thoughts also in terms that although Dabur, as we know today, is, a promoter-led group, Burman, right? But he was the one to sort of ensure, and since he was also with Dabur before getting promoted as the CEO, right? So he was also very cognizant of what the DNA is and to make it from a promoter-led group to a CEO-led group, right? So he was the one to bring in all the systems, processes, and that's how it scaled, right? And it also scaled because of the acquisitions. So like Babool toothpaste, like couple of these which are like household names. They were the ones like he took bold decisions, and that's how they've grown. When we met him again, he so imagine like for 16 years, you're the CEO from 1100 crore market cap to 80,000 crore market cap, right? Potentially a crazy jump on an already large base. He was able to do all of this across the year. So, and when we spoke with him, there was that degree of calm yet I know what I want to be doing in him, right? I mean, very resilient because he's seen. So imagine 16 years, every quarter you're doing like a quarterly call, the 64 calls wherein all stakeholders are asking you tough questions. So because he's been through that, like you can see a sense of calm and at the same time, like, hey, we know where we are headed. We are ready to take bold bets, but will again also be intellectually honest. There's also this very interesting take on, there was this one variant of toothpaste that they were trying at one point in time, wherein the promoters felt otherwise, but because as a as the leadership, they felt that no, irrespective of that their opinion, this makes sense because it's logically backed. They went ahead with it, right? So which just goes to say that merit wins irrespective of hierarchy, and that's why I think Dabur has become from a traditional, like it's a 133-year-old company, right? So instead of it, like irrespective of it being a family owned business, it has been able to scale to such great heights. So yeah, that's something about Mr. Duggal and how Dabur happened.
Interesting. In fact, Dabur at the time of COVID, when the lockdown and everybody spoke about health and hygiene, the Chamanprash of Dabur did really take off. It's, I think, so through the roof in terms of its sales. So it was a very beautifully positioned product in this COVID time. So, like you said, the marketing aspect of Dabur and the way they've gone about advertising individual products when they're competing with equally heavyweights like HUL, Colgate Palmolive or something like that. They've been able to create that niche in terms of an Indian make in India kind of a brand, and so it's very interesting to learn more about Dabur. And I'm sure that in the book Pilani Pioneers, a lot of other insights of Dabur's journey through the CEO is written. So all you guys listening, don't forget to go to page number 229, if I can precisely point out, and read about Dabur. Moving ahead, Durjai, maybe you can take this. Blue Dart. We talk about logistics. We talk about supply chain management. We talk about aviation. Blue Dart is definitely the number one company in Indian landscape, at least. I mean, though in the global landscape there are players as big as Blue Dart, but in India, when it comes to the timely shipments, we talk about Blue Dart. So Blue Dart is something which we'd like to talk about next, and Miss Tulsi Mirchandani, and she, in fact, a woman. CEO, a woman heading this entire Blue Dart journey is something which I'm sure would be very different from the others that you have interviewed. And this talks about how inspiring women-led CEOs can be. So can you brief us and talk us about Miss Tulsi of Blue Dart?
Mhm. For sure. Very interesting story about Miss Tulsi. So Miss Mirchandani, she was uh, okay. She actually dropped out of BITS Pilani, and she was more than happy to interview with us for this book. Even though she didn't complete her course, she probably didn't like some aspects of the college or whatever personal reasons. She still had that love for the college and whatever time she had spent. That she was more than happy to discuss about her life at BITS, her career journey with Blue Dart. So she mentions, and it's there in the book, that she grew up with brothers and everyone was treated equally, and everything was great till she reached college, where is probably the first time she faced a certain differentiation and discrimination based on your gender, which was something that took her aback. And her struggles started from there, in terms of how the world or the society, Indian society at that time, perceived men and women as different. So she has always she's always known the challenges from a different perspective, from a harder perspective. And I think it continued right from the college days, to for a like great amount of her corporate life, in which cargo wasn't always, I mean, it's still not the glamorous part of aviation. It's always the backroom boys. I think that's what she calls people
Yeah.
working in cargo. So uh, from there to bringing Blue Dart and making it a household name has been a transcendental journey for her, and even harder for her, because she had to fight a professional battle as well as a personal battle. Doing all of this, making all of these changes as a woman. So that is something that I'm truly inspired by. That never say die attitude, just keeping at it. That is really inspirational to me.
Where did you meet Miss Tulsi? Was it at her office, or was it at her home, or somewhere outside?
Yeah, so it was actually in her Mumbai office of Blue Dart, just near the airport. So incidentally, again, she was very kind. She's originally based out of Chennai, but she was actually going to this leadership training in Lonavala, and she was during transit. She had 2 hours, and incidentally, like we were in Bombay, so we coordinated and we got her time. This was in the Blue Dart terminal office. It's just in front of the airport, Bombay airport. Also, again, to everyone, I'm sorry about the experience. Lights went off, inverter is out of use. I'm in the balcony, so not so pretty background. We are used to like at least good virtual backgrounds, if not anything, right? So sorry about the experience. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. So we spoke about Mahindra Electric, we spoke about Dabur India, we spoke about Blue Dart, and this is just the start of the book, because there are some startups that we're going to cover. Of course, Mahindra, Dabur, and Blue Dart are age-old companies. Let's talk about a startup, Redbus, which was a big name back in 2015. Uh, you know. Uh, you met Fanindra Sama of Redbus, a Bangalore-based startup, and I remember booking a lot of my tickets from Redbus, and a lot of us would have booked from Redbus. So why don't you start off telling us how was your journey with Fanindra Sama, and then Redbus got acquired? What was he to talk about the acquisition? So a little bit more about the startup culture that you have witnessed while interviewing Fanindra Sama.
So that's an interesting question. And when it comes to Mr. Fanindra Sama, I am always fascinated by the story that he says how Redbus came into the picture. I mean, this idea was never there before, and how did it randomly come to him? So I think the book is a testament to some cliches, which are necessity is the mother of all invention. And when push comes to shove, something clicks in that innovative entrepreneurial brain, and miraculous things happen. So Redbus simply happened because Mr. Fanindra Sama had a bad experience booking a bus. As simple as that. I mean, he saw a problem, and he uh, assumed that this problem is faced by most people and it needed a solution, and hence Redbus. I mean, it's putting things very simply, but that's like a fun thing to know, that that is what led Mr. Samar to create Redbus. And when he started this journey, I think it wasn't as smooth as Redbus is now. A lot of bus operators. He faced a lot of flack from bus operators. Simply put, they said, ये यहाँ पे नहीं चलेगा, ये train या ये bus, sorry, flight नहीं है, ये bus है, ये यहाँ पे ऐसे ही चलता है. And it was a great ordeal for him to overcome that initial friction from bus operators to commuters. And I think 10 years later, everything is running great, and the rest is history.
In
Gaurav, do
fact,
you have something else?
yeah, Gaurav, anything
No,
else you'd like to add? Because I have a
no,
follow-up question on bus, which when reading, I found it very interesting. So, Gaurav, you can start off, and then I'll ask my follow-up question.
right. No, you can go ahead and ask. Just one thing. We interviewed Mr. Sama in, I think there's a very iconic hotel in Bangalore, Hotel Airlines, I think near Indiranagar, if I'm not mistaken.
Hotel
It's a very,
Airlines at St. Mark's Road,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, very famous. So we interviewed him there. So all of this also actually helped us explore the cities we were visiting.
Okay, nice. Gaurav, what you could do is you can turn off your video because your screen is pretty much dark, and you could keep
Yeah,
your audio on. This will
sure.
uh, look a little bit better. The follow-up question I wanted to ask on Brett Bussin is in the chapter on him, that he mentions about the role of a mentor, how important it is to have a mentor, and probably his journey with his mentor. So, some points that you'd like to touch upon on the subtopic of role of a mentor with Sama.
Right. So he very beautifully explains what a mentor can do for you, right? I mean, a mentor is not someone who, you just, I mean, they speak to you once and it's done, right? It's someone who's also invested in your journey, who's guiding you, who's had his own share of learnings and helping you through it, right? So I think I mean, that's a true mentor, and someone who is ahead of you, who in a way has done something that you want to do, right? So that's how you, in a way, identify a mentor is someone who is probably a few years ahead of you, has done something which you would want to do. And from that learning, share with you. And again, not just like, superficially or just like, हाँ एक बार बात कर ली हम एक दो महीने में एक बार बात करते हैं, but someone who's invested in you, right? Who wants to see you go places. So that has shaped like funny quite a lot. And funny Funny is one person who is, again, I think resilience is something that runs across everyone. But him started back in 2005, where there was absolutely, like, low level of internet penetration, right? What we see today, there was absolutely nothing. Yet he knew that this is a problem that needs to be solved, and there is value if this problem is solved. So he's kept at it. And again, we know about the famous acquisition that happened a couple of years back, right? But again, like, great person, very humble, and he helps a lot of startups himself. He's an angel investor. He works with the Telangana state for startups, so he also pays it forward, right? He's had his share of learnings, which he very happily passes it on to young founders. So, and he's very accessible, and you can write an email to him, and he, replies quite a lot. So, yeah, that's funny for you.
Wonderful. So, for all the young guns who are listening, one of the takeaways from Red Bus Funny is he's accessible. You could reach out to him, and also reach out to Gaurav and Durjai, at their respective handles, and speak to them more about entrepreneurship and all of the people that they have interviewed. So another company, Durjai, is a Bangalore-based startup which has become so big that Tata has invested and has become a unicorn today. Is a Big Basket, and you can probably help us understand the journey of Big Basket. Speaking to its founder, Hari Menon, I'm sure there are two or three other founders around Hari, but Big Basket was started as a niche, hyper local for groceries, and having its own grocery white label products, having its own manufacturing, to today Tata investing in Big Basket, making it a $1 billion venture. What was the journey? What was the talk with Hari on Big Basket?
Sure. So I think this gets discussed a lot. Even today, I was discussing this with a friend of how audacious Mr. Menon's business decisions are, how extremely bold and progressive these decisions were. I think it's there in the book when you read about his chapter. It says that in he thought of an online store in 1999, and that was the time where dot-com bubble was happening in the states, in the western world, but it was nothing close to that in India. And from imagining that reality in the previous millennium to doing that maybe years later is obviously a great ordeal. But the thing that doesn't get mentioned a lot is how scrappy he is with his ideas, how objective he is with his ideas. So if you think about a project which you are really attached to, you have put your brains in it, you have put your time in it, your money in it, you tend to treat it like your baby. But as you see, that he ditched that idea when he knew that, hey, now is not the right time. The idea is great, but the time is not. And he moved on. He went on to invest in 210 stores, 10 offline stores. And then he went on to, went back to the idea because now the market had matured in India. And then he started Big Basket. So that entire journey seems very, very exciting to me.
There's a eureka moment that he's mentioned, which you have penned down on your book. Can you help us understand more on that moment for Big Basket?
Hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, Gaurav, go ahead.
Yeah. So with Mr. Menon, right? One thing is, again, as Durjay mentioned, he's very thoughtful, right? And the about the Eureka moment, he realized that, hey, you know what? Now is the time when e-commerce can actually pick up in India, right? And like specifically ordering groceries through. Hello,
Yeah, Gaurav, your voice is a bit tacky. If you can speak up a bit.
hello.
Yeah, Durjai, can you take over, please?
Hello.
Yeah,
Hi,
Durjai,
Nilesh,
take
can you
over.
hear me?
Yeah,
Hello.
Hi, I think
yeah, I
I
can hear
dropped.
you. Go.
Yeah. Durjai, I'll take it up.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Sorry, I dropped out.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Nijesh, about the Eureka moment, right? So basically, back in '99, there was this when Hari and his co-founder they were working, I think at Planet Asia. Like there was this idea to build like FabMart, right? Which is like the e-commerce back then that they had anticipated that thought that hey, I would build this out. Uh, but they realized that there wasn't a payment gateway, right? There was basically there was a bank who floated that hey, there should be a payment gateway. But what's the use of a payment gateway if there is no marketplace or an e-commerce to actually uh, for it to be used at, right? So that is when they thought that hey, irrespective of that, what if we can actually build a website through which commerce happens, right? And then the payment gateway will come. So that was their moment. That is when they thought that we'll build like an e-commerce shopping website, and this is back in 1999. Obviously then they were working, they had like good jobs, and risking it all, leaving that to build like the e-commerce website is something which was like a bold decision. But again, as Durjay mentioned, like he's taken bold decisions all his life, and that's how like he's been able to create such large organizations with such great impact, right? So yeah, that's about the Eureka moment, wherein the idea that came, the thought that was running around, like a tender that was floated for a payment gateway, but a payment gateway is of no use without a website on which it can be used on, right? Like for commerce. So that is when it hit them that hey, first the commerce will come and then like the payment gateways will come in. So that was their Eureka moment.
Wow, such simple thoughts define, powerful moments. I think Big Basket would not have been Big Basket if not the commerce part had been added. So I think great takeaway, Gaurav. Thank you. There are so many stories, and we have less time. So quickly try to understand more on. Okay, Gaurav is back with a lot of lighting around him, so that's
Yeah.
great. Can we touch upon a little bit on Vishal Megamart? Vishal Megamart, the CEO, Gunendra Kapoor, he's a well-traveled CEO. I mean, he started off his journey overseas and then Nigeria, and then came back, headed two, three MNCs, and then became an investor in his own startup, Vishal Megamart. And why particularly I would like to talk about Vishal Megamart is because in the retail eco space today, with COVID hitting in and a lot of people transition to online, what is the take on of Vishal Megamart? And if you could also help us understand when you interviewed him, which month or which year, because that would help us understand the position of retail at the time you interviewed him. So can you speak more on Vishal Megamart, please?
Yeah, sure. So, one thing, incidentally, that all of us have to realize, right, is India is a very, very large country with varying demographics, right? Like we today are doing this Facebook, live, but there are so many people who probably don't have, so for me, like my power went off for a while, right? For a lot of people, that is the reality in India. Again, we would never be, so conscious about these realities. Similarly, retail to us probably means okay, fine, I want something, I'll go to my shopping apps, I'll buy it off, right? But there is such a large chunk of India which is still not online, not doing online commerce, right? So Vishal Megamart is at a very sweet position wherein they cater to the retail needs of the aspiring India, as they call it, right? So we interviewed Virender sir in Mumbai. This was, I think, June of 2019, if we are not mistaken. So June 2019 is when we interviewed him, much before the
Just
pandemic.
just a year before COVID.
Correct, a year before COVID, right? So that is when we interviewed him, and then later again we met him in the Vishal Mega Mart offices in Gurgaon. So we met him there. Again, about Vishal Mega Mart, it, like retail in India is really, really large, right? Come to think of it, Amazon and Flipkart today exist and they do crazy like GMVs, revenues through their platform, and yet there is so much of room for them to grow. which just goes to say that the big, like the retail market in India is so big. Vishal Megamart is positioned for like the middle segment or the aspiring India, and again they have like a great presence. And about Gunindur sir, again, he's very kind. And for that matter, all 25 people, like when we started interviewing, and even today, Durjai and myself, we are 24, right? And we started the journey 3 years back, 21. So they were kind enough to, give their valuable time to two 21-year-old, 22-year-olds wanting to do something, wanting to document their journey. So all of them have been very kind. And I think that kindness also reflects in how they operate, how they think about, like, not just building a business, but building an organization that is more inclusive, that has more impact, right? So Vishal Megamart, is that to you?
Wow. And Vishal Megamart does some huge numbers itself. I think it clocks a revenue of $1 billion. And I think they've also ventured into e-commerce today. So I think great strategy. And, they've, like you rightly said, it's for inspiring India. A lot of 2 or 3 tier cities having Vishal Megamart. So, which is a good strategy for them. And I'm very happy to also know that, young guns like the two of you think so highly about retail, think so highly about physical shopping, which helps, and like you rightly said, Indian demography is so wide and so deep that there's space for almost anything and everybody. So great stuff on Vishal Megamart. And another company which I'll touch upon next, a failing company, a guy coming on board and then taking over and making it a success story. We are talking about Vikrant Tires. Vikrant Tires becoming JK Tires. Not many know that JK Tires was earlier Vikrant Tires. So can you help us all understand the transition of Arun Bajoy from Vikrant to JK Tires,
Right.
and probably
So
the story
again,
how the takeover took place of the falling Vikrant Tires?
right. So, Mr. Bajoria, again, JK Tyres is owned by the Singhania Group. And about Mr. Bajoria, again, like, he's one person, I mean, जो सेनापति बोलते हो ना, आप किसी war में जा रहे हो और आपका सेनापति आपको लेकर जाएगा, right? He's that person. I think he's had a very illustrious career, I think over 55 years, and there is no sign of him stopping. Um, he works round the clock. So you won't believe, when we interviewed him again, luckily in the Patriot House, which is JK Tyre's main office in Delhi. We got the time at 2 p.m. He had a flight to Baroda. He was going to go there, work for 3 hours, come back the same night. Then next day again fly out to a different city, work, and then come back. And third day again he was traveling. Like, you won't believe, like, his entire schedule was around, like, hey, I have to, like, this is my checklist, I have to do this A B C D E. He's that one person who left us with a message that showing up is one thing, but if you go that extra mile, like, you would learn, I mean, you would stand out, right? And that's how he's been able to grow the business. Also about him, an Indian company actually acquired a Mexican company also, right? So JK Tire actually acquired Tornel, which is in Mexico and which is a market leader. Again, JK Tire is a market leader in India today, right? So they have actually, I mean, so one thing about Mr. Bajoria, he's that person who works round the clock, extremely hardworking, and which is what you see in the results that there are, right? I mean, in terms of the group growing so much, going abroad, acquiring, the transition from Vikrant to JK, like everything that you see, right?
Wow, nice. And Durja, anything that you like to add in this story of JK
Mhm.
Tires?
For sure. I'll just pick it up from where Gaurav left it. I think he isn't quoting numbers when he mentions how hard Mr. Bajoria works or how long he works. I think this is an anecdote someone shared with me, wherein a journalist asked Mr. Bajoria how long his career was, and he said 75 years, to which the reporter was befuddled, and he asked, okay, that means that you should be at least 100 years old. You don't look that old. So why is that? I said, okay, so an average person works 8 hours a day. I work 12 to 14 hours a day, which makes my 50-year career a 75-year career. As simple as that. And this has not changed from his starting days till now. And he has very strong work ethics. He has very strong morals. There's this amazing anecdote that he shared with us that so he is a teetotaler all his life, even during college till now, everything. And once in his group of friends, a close knit group of friends, they tried to force him to probably eat an egg, Gaurav, if I'm not wrong. And he said,
Yeah,
okay, I am a teetotaler, I'm a vegetarian, I will never break these rules. And he did not. They had to force him, and they shoved an egg here, and they said, okay, now you're a non-vegetarian. To which Mr. Patel said, okay, fine, if you want to believe that, sure. But I am very, very secure about my morals. I would not break them for anything. And if you want me to change for that, then I'll just simply say that I cannot be a part of this group. And having that kind of security when you're 20 is just beyond your years and truly aspirational, if you ask me.
Nice, and I think morals do take people a long way. Be it small or big, at least you tend to sleep well in the night. That's, I think, the most important takeaway of the last 2 years
Well
in
said.
COVID that we all are in. We've spoken about 7 to 8 stories of different entrepreneurs, different CEOs. And before we run out of time, a story that, apart from the ones that we discuss, if you guys would like to touch upon anything that you got inspired most, why don't you take one or two companies or people and talk about them?
sure.
Of course, apart from the ones that we have discussed already.
Yeah, I'll pick two. The first is of Mr. Ajoy Misra. He was the MD and CEO of Tata Global Beverages, now Tata Consumer Products. And back then, he was the senior VP of Taj Hotels. And this is the same time when I'm speaking about when the 26/11 Taj attacks happened, right? So he was mentioning how, and back in the day, there used to be BlackBerry, and he was the senior VP of marketing. So when obviously the attacks were happening, uh, the Taj Hotel had to give out, their official statement. So he remembers how outside the hotel, just like there is this sea in front of the hotel. So he was typing on his BlackBerry, and like he heard like a thud. And also at the same time, you could see like so much of chaos happening. There is Express Stars just behind Taj Hotels, which is where a lot of other Tata offices are. That is where they'd set up like the entire uh, as in disaster management center. Everybody who was injured, they would go there. All helplines were set up there. So, and this is one incident. Again, like back in 1997, there was, I think, a bomb blast in Taj Samudra, near Taj Samudram. It was in Hilton Hotel in Sri Lanka, and he was the GM then in Sri Lanka. So he's mentioned very beautifully how what disaster management or like crisis management is, right? And he had like the unfortunate instance of being, I mean, obviously, who likes disasters, right? But how do you overcome it and how to face them in, in real high impact situations, right? So that is one story. And I loved how he was so candid. And well, we've heard of 26/11, we've heard of the Tata Group, but what was it really like to be on ground, managing different things and like doing that? So that is one. The second is about Miss Nandini Chopra. She's the MD of Alvarez and Marcel. Again, what's inspiring about her, and similar with like Tulsi ma'am, Shivangi ma'am, and also Sandhya ma'am, who are there in the book, we don't tend to realize, but like women face a lot of challenges while growing up the career ladder, right? The top of the funnel is more or less similar, like the entry workforce, equal number of men or women, but they tend to drop off with time, right? And once they drop off, then like having an illustrious career, being at the helm, how do you get there? Not shying away from rolling up your sleeves, burning that midnight oil, working really hard and getting there, right? While balancing all the other responsibilities that you have as a mother, a sister, a wife, all of these. That is very inspiring. So we had the good fortune of interviewing all the amazing women in our book. So yeah, these would be a few stories that come to the top of my mind. Durjai, what's yours?
Oh, mine is Abhishek Humbert's. who's co-founder of Goodera. So I think there's this common thread that connects every 25, each of these 25 people in the books, apart from their alma mater, which is that their will to succeed is more than just to succeed in terms of finances, monetary value, valuations. I mean, that is just a side product of what they're trying to do. If you see that each of them has tried to do something meaningful, something with meaningful impact with their careers, be it Mr. Pradeep Kashyap, who started a program for underprivileged women. I think, if I'm not wrong, the number is 60,000 underprivileged women have been helped through that program. And Mr. Baba Kalyani's Pratham Foundation. There are instances all across Miss Sandhya Ma'am's Me Veg Society, Middle Eastern Vegetarian Society, to grow awareness about animal rights and the environment. So all of this reflects in their work, and it consistently does. And one of the most innovative solutions is Mr. Humbert's startup, Goodera. So he mentions that CSR earlier was just an activity in which most organizations threw their money at a problem, as simple as that, right? And he quoted a budget that the government has. Gaurav, I think it's 80,000 crores, if I'm not wrong, 8,000 or 80,000
Yeah,
crores. It's a
80,
huge
80.
number. It's 80,000 crores. And so government already has that kind of money. And whatever this budget is, it completely dwarfs whatever combined budget private firms have for CSR activities. But what these firms have that the government doesn't have has is an accumulation of technical talent, innovative minds thinking about great solutions. So why not solve the problem, but in a different way? And that is how the idea of Goodera came into being, and which is a great example of how to solve the same problem but creatively.
Wow, and I think what the two of you mentioned talks about how entrepreneurs or how people who've made it big have that grit and determination to continue despite various downfalls or various blockers that they would have. And especially Gaurav, you mentioned about Nandini Chopra. She mentions so nice in the book that the gender-based prejudices or the pressure that she normal society faces. Her parents were the backing. They really stood out in her childhood in terms of the way she grew up, her thinking. So I think for all the parents who are watching, for all the generation where who have daughters and women who want to make it big, I think there is no issue in comparing or keeping the same platform for both the genders. And we can rightly see in the book that there are so many great women in India who made it big. And of course, in the Western world and in the overseas countries, women do tend to perform, do tend to lead bigger teams, bigger organizations. So great stuff in also addressing these subtle but very important points for the different kind of readers. There are so many
Also
questions
to
that
add,
come.
yeah,
Yeah,
sorry for
Gaurav.
this, but just an extension. I mean, it's not just the parents, but I think she has a very supportive husband, and she's mentioned about it. So as partners, also we need to be very supportive of our
Absolutely.
partner's career. So yeah, just wanted to add that. But
Absolutely. In fact, it reminds me of that movie Key and Ka. I don't know if the two of you have watched it, but in that movie, who's the actor? Abhishek Kapoor. I think Abhishek Kapoor takes the role of the homemaker,
The
and
house husband,
Kareena.
yeah,
Yeah, and Karina is more from taking charge of the business and the finance
right.
of the house. So I think we're getting there. India is not too far behind. With the growth of education and people getting equipped with a lot of information through social media and the likes, I'm sure that the barrier will break, and it's bound to break. So great stuff in mentioning all those points too when you're interviewing all these guys. So a lot of questions that I have, a lot of topics that we could cover, but unfortunately we have limited time. We have about 15 minutes that we have spoken, and it's gone by like a flash. There are a couple of questions, if I may ask Natasha, who's handling the back end, who could probably put it on the screen so we could answer it. Okay, so we have Nitin Shah who's asking who are your inspirations of. It can be also apart from the 25 stories that you mentioned, apart from these 25, someone outside who you would have liked to interview but not yet got the chance. So, who are your inspiration? You could take up the question individually.
Sure. All 25 are inspiring in their own rights. And I think we've been very fortunate. I'd say not one person, but the entire BITS fraternity is inspiring to us for a few reasons. We have received a lot from our seniors. So it's a natural onus on us to give it back. I think this is not my thought. This is somebody's thought back in 1960s who did it for themselves, जो आगे करते गए और वो बढ़ते बढ़ते आज we see such a vibrant ecosystem for bits, right? So I think that is very inspiring. Like, how do communities grow? It's always about pay it forward, help how in whatever ways you can. So I think the entire bits fraternity is inspiring to us. Yeah.
I
And
completely agree with that. And sorry, Nilesh, I just want to add something to this. In the spirit of paying it forward, it was Gaurav's great idea to keep this book pro bono. We are not taking any money for it. All the author royalties will be donated to a scholarship to at BITS to propagate a culture of entrepreneurship, to encourage young entrepreneurs to bring forth their innovative ideas. And this is something we really wanted to do. And thank you for suggesting that great idea, Gaurav.
so nice to hear this, and for all the readers who are listening, for all the viewers who are viewing and watching this, all the proceeds of the sale, the Joy mentioned, will be going towards a fund of bits, which will help startups, which will help newer people start something innovative. And just to mention, Sapna Book House has an offer for the book, the Pilani Brothers, and which can be availed pan India at sapnaonline.com. It's a 25% offer, and you just have to put in the code Pilani25, and bingo, you get your book in a day's time. Of course, you can also walk into all of our 19 stores in Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, and also grab your book physically. And it's definitely a must read for not only entrepreneurs and young readers, but also professionals who've been part of corporate life, who are in corporate lives, to take cue from the journeys of the big guns who've made the Indian economy, who are powering the Indian economy to greater heights. A last question, Gaurav and Durjai, is in COVID-19, in the ongoing COVID pandemic, most of the young startups have been hit. And in your experience and your interviews that you had with all of these guys, what is the key thing that you can share with startups who have been hit by the COVID crisis, and not only startups for that matter, even business houses who may have faced certain issues with the COVID over the last 2 years? So anything that you can, anecdote, anything you can speak of from the people who you've met, how to handle the stress and the pandemic situation that business houses and startups are in.
Sure. Two answers to it, or two dimensions. A softer dimension: seek help. I think as Indians, we don't seek help. We think कि अगर हम पूछ लेंगे कोई हमें help कर देगा तो हम छोटे हो जाएंगे. That's also the reason why we see a lot of brothers not talking to each other, not seeking each other's help, wherein you could potentially, right? These are tough times, not the past 2 years, but again, for business to recover. So softer thing is ask help. Second thing, and which I which, like, sort of a cue from this is plan ahead. Like, this is just one type of emergency, or, like, a problem that has come up. There could be multiple different types of problems we could be hit with, right? Pandemic was one. So plan in advance, have like backup plans. Also, that's something that a lot of Indians don't do. We are like, ki, haan, dekh lenge, on the go kar lenge. But if we are more strategic about it, then I think, yeah, we can sail it. So yeah, these are the two things: seek help and plan in advance.
So I think mentorship is very important, and making sure that you have the right setup, maybe team structure, ecosystem in place for your planning. So these are the wonderful takeaways. And Durjai, anything from your end that you'd like to share?
Sure. Actually, on a parting note, I just want to reassert this power of connecting with people that leads to miracles. This book happened because we could connect with so many people. This book is reaching people because we can connect with so many people. And the bottom line of this is, like Yuval Noah Harari, he said that humans as a species has reached this level only because we can communicate, number one, in large numbers, and number two, effectively. So, just to leave you with an anecdote, this was in the 1936 classic by Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. He mentions an anecdote where he asked Jim Farley, the leader of DNC at that time, Mr. Farley, what is the secret sauce of your success? To which he replied, nothing, just diligence. Dale Carnegie pointed out that bullshit, and he said, wrong. I know that you can call 10,000 people by their first names. To which Mr. Farley said, no, you're wrong. I can call 50,000 people by their first names. And make no mistake, that ability put Mr. Franklin D. Roosevelt in the president's seat because Mr. Farley led his campaign. And we all know that FDR was the most successful president in the history, and of course, the most powerful man for 4 tenures. So that is just the power of connecting with people and networking and making connections on a personal level that can lead to miracles.
I think very well said, Durjai. And networking does play an important part in upbringing, in terms of your business, in terms of society. So great stuff, Gaurav and Durjai. It was fantastic to have the two of you. A lot of learning myself when I went through the book. And I hope that when a version two of this book comes, you guys would be featured in it, and we could be reading your story. Great stuff to the alumni group, great stuff to your institution. And we at Sapna Book House and sapnaonline.com are absolutely thrilled to have your book on the promotion, just so that many readers can pick it up and read your book. So once again, thank you, Gaurav. Thank you, Durjai. Look forward to meeting the two of you personally, if at all you guys are in Bangalore. And fortunately, everything is unlocking quite fast without thinking about the third wave. And if there's a case, we could probably do a book launch, a physical book launch, a physical interaction with the two of you. So lovely once again, all the viewers and readers. The Pilani Pioneers is an inspiring success story of 25 BITS Pilani graduates. It is by Gaurav and Durjai, and wishing the two of them all the very best in the years to come.
Thank you so much for having us, Najesh. It was really, really fun. We had a blast.
Thank you so much.
Great. See you on the other side. Thank you, guys. Signing off from Sapna Book House. This is Sapna Rise, Season 4, Episode 11. And we look forward to having more episodes with such enterprising authors, entrepreneurs, and people in future. Thank you.